Good afternoon. One of the sole reasons I wanted to be governor is because when you get to an age where things start to matter, it's too late. And I mean, from 1983 to 1989, we allowed Congress to do what they call interdepartmental borrowing. I was born in 1982. This started in 1983. These individuals who were in control did something before I even turned a year old that is having a lasting effect on my life. Because I am part of this economy. I am part of this society. And not a state did anything about it. There have been arguments. There have been precedences set by different judicial branches across this nation. But nothing set in stone to say, hey, when we take this money from Social Security, how are we going to pay it back? And what are going to be the long-term effects of what we do today? There are different types of people that will simply say, I don't care what happens tomorrow. Give me mine today. I will not struggle today. Or why would I struggle today? Why do I care about what happens after I'm gone? When you have kids or when you have something that you want to pass on, that thought process changes a bit. I do care about what is put in place for people that come after me. And it's so important. A lot of millennials, Gen Zs, Gen Alphas are going to have to say, hey, what type of world did we leave them? Our boomers, our parents, and beyond have kind of left us in a very peculiar place where we are seeing like what happened. This was not done in a day. 1983, they started borrowing this money. Now they're saying we need kids to work up until you're 70 years old because you have to pay into taxes. You need this money in order to do this. The reason we are put in those categories is to give an idea of the numbers. The census numbers were important. How many people do we have? How many are working? Because in 1971, we removed ourselves from the gold standard and now we're on the debt standard, which is the fiat currency system. We're on the debt standard, ladies and gentlemen. So I am asking you to understand that, hey, when you have a candidate, it is your job to build that candidate and you need a voice. When we elect or when we go to bring out policies and we want to turn those policies into legislation, a candidate will come out to you and they will say, hey, vote for me because I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. But you still need a voice. How or what represents your voice? When you go on to Florida.gov, you go on to these websites. Where do you see where you have an opportunity that shows your voice? This is a problem. We have a feeling of when I speak up and I speak out at a protest or a venue or something of that nature, and people agree with me that is the same as having a weighted voice, and it is not. When you vote me in, you will also have an opportunity for a weighted voice. Because one of the pieces of legislation that I will fight to have put in place is, in 2020, there were 7 million voters. Give or take a couple 100,000, but nonetheless, 7 million voters in 2020 that voted for governor. If 60% or some percentage that you're okay with says, hey, we do not like the legislation that has been brought about, that's 7 million people. We don't like this legislation because it will be available for you to have a voice on. That should have a weighted conversation. If it's split, then the representatives will do what representatives are supposed to do, which is do the best they can for the majority. But if it isn't split, if the majority of voters are saying, we don't want this, that's it. It's a wash. Doesn't matter who's arguing for it. It's a wash because the majority said no. We have a baseline number that you can go off of. So even if you stand behind me as your representative, if you come out and say, you know what, out of all the information you provided and everybody who's come forward or against it and everything that's been put out for us, when you guys come to these type of votes that we are put in or we have a way to weigh in on, and you weigh in and you say, hey, 60% of us said we don't even want to do that. It's a wash. That means we got to go back to we have to go back to the drawing board because we could not get 60% of our voters to agree with what we want to do. There is one thing to have me represent you, but it's another thing to have me represent you and you all of a sudden don't have a voice behind the person you put in the seat. We can't see you behind the person you put in the seat, and that's a problem. So I want to govern the complexities, and I want to teach you that, hey, what I do today, it will have a lasting effect. What we are dealing with today, whether it's the unregulated price gougings, whether or not we're going to pay someone's legal fees, all of these things. When you hear people say, hey, we're going to sue this company, and we sue this company, the state sued this company for hundreds of millions of dollars. How did that help you personally? What did that money go to? Where is that breakdown? Is it simple to get there? Is it simple to understand what's going on? If the math is complex, we're going to help you raise your education level up so you can understand the complexities of that math. But we're going to make sure that that information is transparent. Your voice will not just be a conversation. I am a very serious person when I say the conversations is not the consequence. So when you see these people, these elected officials, and they're having all of these rah-rah conversations, you're feeling real good about it. And you're like, yeah, that's what we need. Call them out. The conversation is not the consequence. The people who are feeling the consequence are the ones who are struggling because you keep conversating with no consequence. And by the time we see some of these weird actions happen, we're wondering, like individuals are now, where is my tax money? How come this is happening? How come I didn't know that I could have opted out of that IRS keep money in my check? How come I didn't know? Why wasn't it advertised the same way you advertise anything else? That was your government's fault. That was your state government's fault. If you didn't know that you could have adjusted your withholdings so that your taxes would remain the same, that's our fault because we knew it was coming. Your government knew it was coming. We have to take responsibility for that. But then the conversation ain't the consequence. Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to fix it? This is what people are wanting to know. Those questions can only be answered by individuals who are in the seats. Put me in the seat and make me accountable, not just conversate. Put me in a place of accountability, and I will produce. I have to produce because I have children. I had an individual tell me that in 2026 there would be no government. There would be nothing. And I simply said, on the happenstance that you could be wrong, I would still appreciate your support, just in case it is a government, because I know I do not want anarchy. We can reform a lot of the working legislation and make it work for the majority. If there is something out there that is working for a group, and it's not working for your group, let us know so we can figure out how to reform that so that it touches the majority. And if you feel like you are not part of the majority, but it should be working for you, that's when we need to hear from you. You guys have a great day.